Most anglers walk into a tackle shop or scroll through the electronics section online, see a fish finder priced at $1,000, and assume they are about to see the water in a completely different way. And that assumption is partly right and partly the reason why a lot of people end up overspending without understanding exactly what changed. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this is the kind of conversation that should happen before you swipe your card, not 6 months after the unit is bolted to your boat. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've spent enough time around fishing electronics, tackle shops, and real fishing water to understand that the jump from a $200 fish finder to a $1,000 fish finder is not just about the brand name on the face of the unit. It's about specific technologies, specific screen real estate, and specific fishing situations where those features make a meaningful difference. The problem is that most anglers buying expensive sonar don't fully understand which of those features they're actually going to use on the water they fish. And some of the most impressive capabilities built into these units are things a recreational angler on a local lake may almost never need. So by the end of this, you'll know exactly what you gain when you spend $1,000 on sonar. Which parts of that upgrade genuinely help you catch more fish? And which parts are engineering achievements that look great in a product video, but may never change a single day of your fishing? Let's start with the baseline. A budget fish finder in the $200 to $300 range from Garmin, Humminbird, or Lowrance is not a bad piece of equipment. A unit like the Humminbird Helix 5 or the Garmin Striker 4 gives you CHIRP sonar, GPS, a waypoint system, and a small screen that works fine for identifying bottom depth, marking structure, and locating suspended fish in basic conditions. CHIRP sonar, which stands for Compressed High-Intensity Radiated Pulse, sweeps a range of frequencies instead of a single fixed tone. That means better target separation, cleaner returns, and less clutter at the bottom of the screen compared to older single-frequency units. The important detail here is that CHIRP sonar is no longer exclusive to expensive fish finders. You get it on entry-level units. So if someone tells you that a $1,000 unit has CHIRP, that is not by itself what justifies the price. Nearly every serious fish finder on the market today has some version of it. What you are actually buying as the price climbs is a combination of things, and it is worth breaking them down honestly rather than letting the marketing do it for you. The first is screen size and display resolution. This one sounds obvious, but it has more practical value than most anglers give it credit for. A 5-inch screen and a 9-inch screen are not just different in convenience. They are different in how much sonar data you can actually read while the boat is moving, while light is bouncing off the display, and while you are simultaneously managing your rod. On a smaller screen, fish arches that appear close together can blur into a single return. Structure details in down imaging mode can look muddy. Split-screen views that show both traditional sonar and imaging side by side become difficult to interpret because each window is now roughly the size of a playing card. A larger display running higher resolution gives you the ability to read what the water is telling you without guessing. That is a real advantage in a fishing situation, and it is one of the first things anglers consistently notice when they upgrade. So a portion of that $1,000 price is going towards screen size, and for most anglers, that portion is money that actually does something useful. The second gain is side imaging and down imaging quality. Here is where the difference between entry-level units and mid to premium units becomes genuinely significant. Basic down imaging gives you a picture-like view of what is directly below the boat, which is more useful than traditional sonar arch returns for seeing structure detail, identifying bottom composition changes, and spotting suspended fish in relation to cover. But side imaging takes that one step further by scanning out to the sides of the boat. And at the premium end, a good side imaging transducer can give you a clear picture of bottom structure out to several hundred feet. on each side. That kind of coverage changes how you approach a day of fishing. Instead of running over every piece of structure to market, you can cover water efficiently and identify spots worth fishing before you ever position the boat on them. Hummingbird's Mega Imaging, available on their upper helix units, and Garmin's ultra-high-definition scanning sonar on the EcoMap UHD series represent meaningful steps up in image clarity compared to standard or HD imaging. MEGA runs at a higher frequency, which produces sharper images in shallower to mid-depth water. You are not just seeing a blob on the screen that might be a brush pile. You are seeing an image detailed enough to differentiate between a laydown log, a rock pile, and a ball of baitfish. That kind of clarity matters when you are trying to decide whether a mark is worth pulling a rod out for. The trade-off with higher frequency imaging is that it does not read as effectively in deeper water. So how much you benefit from mega or ultra high definition imaging depends significantly on the depth range where you spend most of your time fishing. The third gain is GPS quality and built-in mapping. Entry-level units often include basic GPS with simple base maps. You get depth contours, general lake outlines, and waypoint storage. At the $1,000 level, you start getting preloaded, high-definition lake maps with more detailed contour lines, which makes a meaningful difference on bodies of water where subtle depth changes concentrate fish. Some units include Navionics plus built-in, others integrate with LakeMaster or Hummingbird's AutoChart Live, which lets you build your own detailed contour maps of the water you fish most. That last feature is underrated. If you spend most of your time on a smaller local lake that isn't mapped in great detail by default, the ability to chart your own bottom is more useful than any factory map included in the box. Now let's talk about where $1,000 stops and where the real price escalation begins, because this is the part where anglers consistently misread what they are actually buying. Live sonar is not included in a standard $1,000 fish finder. Let me say that again clearly. The feature that has genuinely changed competitive bass fishing over the last several years, the forward-facing and down-facing live sonar that allows you to watch fish react to your lure in real time, is sold separately from the display unit. Garmin's LiveScope Plus, Hummingbird's Mega Live Imaging, and Lawrence's Active Target 2 are all transducer and black box systems that connect to a compatible display. And each of those systems runs somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 on its own. So when you see an angler on a tournament stream with what looks like a single sonar setup, and they are watching individual bass follow their swim bait across the screen in real time, that angler is likely running a display unit and a live sonar system that together cost well over $3,000. Sometimes significantly more when you add mounting hardware, networking, and a second unit for the bow. This distinction matters because a lot of recreational anglers see live sonar content online and assume that spending $1,000 on a fish finder gets them into that category. It does not. $1,000 gets you a large, capable, high-definition scanning sonar with solid GPS and mapping. Live sonar is a separate category entirely, and it comes at a separate price. Here is where it is worth being honest about who live sonar actually benefits. Tournament anglers and serious weekend anglers fishing pressured clear water fisheries can use live sonar to adapt their presentations in real time. When you can see a fish following your lure, slow its swim, and change the fall rate on a shaky head based on what the screen is showing you, that is a meaningful competitive advantage. But for the average angler fishing a local reservoir for crappie, catfish, or bass on a Saturday morning, the fish-catching benefit of live sonar is less clear-cut. What live sonar does is make fishing a lot more engaging and visually interesting. Whether it makes recreational anglers catch meaningfully more fish than a high-quality CHIRP unit with side imaging is a more complicated question. And the honest answer is that it depends heavily on how you fish and what conditions you fish in. Now let's come back to that $1,000 unit specifically, because if you are choosing between spending $400 and spending $1,000, the gap is worth examining carefully. At roughly $400 to $500, you can find units like the Garmin EcoMap UHD 73 sieverts or the Humminbird Helix 7 CHIRP Mega Sci with a 7-inch screen, side imaging, down imaging, CHIRP sonar, GPS, and built-in mapping. These are capable units that serious anglers use successfully every season. The step up to $1,000 typically gets you a larger screen, 9 inches or more, higher resolution imaging, faster processor speed that reduces lag when you scroll back through imaging history, better networking capability if you want to share data between two units on the same boat, and in some cases, a more durable housing with better waterproofing ratings. The processor speed improvement is worth mentioning because it shows up in a place anglers do not always anticipate. When you scroll back through side imaging history on a slower unit while running at speed, the image can stutter or lag in a way that makes structure interpretation harder. A faster processor keeps that image smooth, which means you spend less time trying to figure out what you are looking at and more time making decisions about where to fish. The networking capability matters more for anglers running a console unit and a bow unit that need to share sonar data, GPS tracks, and waypoints. If you fish solo from a single unit setup, that capability is largely irrelevant to your day-to-day fishing. There are a few things a $1,000 fish finder does not change that are worth keeping in mind. It does not replace boat position skill. A great sonar screen sitting on a boat that is poorly positioned over structure is still going to produce a confusing or irrelevant sonar image. It does not replace knowledge of the water. Knowing where fish tend to be during different seasons, different water temperatures, and different conditions is a larger factor in your catch rate than the resolution of your imaging. And it does not eliminate the need for a quality transducer installation. The transducer is the component that actually generates and receives the sonar signal, and a premium unit running a cheap or improperly mounted transducer will underperform compared to a mid-range unit with a clean, properly installed transducer, aeration bubbles hitting the face of a transducer at speed, or a transducer mounted at the wrong angle can degrade the image on even the most expensive unit on the market. This brings up a point that gets ignored in a lot of fish finder conversations. The transducer that comes bundled with a unit matters, and many of the combo packages at the $1,000 level include transducers worth a significant portion of that price. When you compare a $500 unit that comes bundled with a basic transducer to a $1,000 combo that includes a quality side imaging transducer, part of what you are paying for is the transducer itself, not just the display. Let me know in the comments what kind of water you fish most, because the argument for spending more on sonar looks very different on a clear highland reservoir with 30 feet of visibility versus a shallow, heavily stained river with 3 feet of water under the boat. The conditions you fish in genuinely change which features on these units are useful to you. One more thing worth saying before we wrap this up. If you are a casual angler who goes out a dozen times a year targeting panfish, catfish, or bass on familiar water, a $200 to $300 unit with solid CHIRP sonar and GPS will likely meet most of your needs. If you fish frequently, if you cover a lot of unfamiliar water, if you target structure-oriented species, or if you are serious about efficiency in tournament or pre-fishing situations, the jump to a $1,000 unit with high-definition imaging, a large screen, and a quality transducer is a reasonable investment that will change how you read the water. If you are chasing the live sonar experience specifically, understand that you are looking at a total investment that starts well above $1,000 once you include a compatible display, the live sonar system itself, and proper installation. The honest answer to what you actually gain by spending $1,000 on sonar is this. You gain real-time clarity, detailed imaging of structure and cover a screen large enough to act on what you are seeing while you fish, and better GPS mapping tools. You do not automatically gain live sonar, and you do not gain the ability to catch fish that are not where you are fishing. The unit makes finding and interpreting productive water faster and easier. The fishing is still your job. Tell me in the comments which fish finder you are currently running and what body of water you use it on. I am curious whether anglers feel like they are getting enough out of their current unit, or whether the upgrade conversation is one they have been thinking about. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who is about to drop $1,000 on Sonar without fully understanding what is inside that box. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.